I'm almost 40, and a few days ago I had a chat with a friend of mine who's a year older than me, and he's having something of an existential crisis. So currently he's at a point in his life where he realized that, at least that's what he feels, that his entire life has been an accumulation of unrealized potential. So he always knew that he had potential to do something, but he never really did something with it. And now he's almost 40, he's soon to be 40 actually, and he feels like he hasn't achieved anything. He hasn't achieved anything career-wise. He never actually managed to build a business. He's almost broke. He is not in the physical shape that he'd like to be in. He doesn't have the financial means he'd like to have. And in his perspective, he's not at the level that he'd like to be in terms of communication, having an ability to meet women. And we had this chat, and I realized that the emotions that he feels and the emotions that I have felt for the last few years are very similar. Now, on an objective level, you could argue that I achieved a lot more because society looks at these external markers like career, mostly career. I'm just gonna say society looks at career and your lifestyle. And in terms of career, yes, I have become a corporate lawyer, been relatively successful at it. So objectively speaking, you could say that I have achieved a lot more than him and I'm in a much better place. And when we had this chat, I realized that that's what he was thinking. He was looking at me and thinking that I'm so far ahead of him. But the reality is that for a large part of my adult life, I have been doing something that I knew could or had the potential to keep me above water. I did it because I knew that it would make me the money that I needed to do the stuff that I wanted to do. So all of the fun stuff that I wanted to do, all of the trips I wanted to do. I knew that being a lawyer would come with all of the status that people would give me and attribute to me. But deep down, I wasn't really living in alignment with what I personally valued. And because of that, I constantly felt like I was dreading my days and I wasn't really ready I wasn't really feeling fulfilled or happy with where I was. And that's why, or a large part of why, a year or a little over a year ago, I decided to make a change and go into the coaching direction. But that's also what initially led me to leave the big law, corporate law firm world and go into a smaller law firm, because I was unfulfilled. And back then I realized that because of my programming, and a lot of people in that world are programmed that way, we are so scared of not having financial means, so scared of the loss of status, of what our peers will think, that we keep doing something that really doesn't fulfill us, that really doesn't make us happy. But we're worried of we're worried of creating that impression that we really are not good enough, and that's why we're leaving, that we're not made for it. We're worried about the loss of status. We're worried about never being able to come back to that word. So rather than chasing something that we would actually enjoy, chasing something that would actually fulfill us, we stay in this thing that is almost like a cage. Yes, and some days I actually enjoyed my work. Actually, most days I enjoyed it. I liked my colleagues, I liked my clients, but I wasn't fulfilled. And to bring this full circle, when I talked to this friend of mine, who's actually a coaching client of mine now as well, but when I talked to him, I had this crazy realization that really we're both in a very similar place, mentally and emotionally, because we're both unsatisfied with where we are. So he's very unsatisfied with where he is, to the point where it's almost making him depressed, or he is in a way desperate, and he doesn't know how to get out of where he is. And I'm emotionally in a similar place, in the sense of I want more, and I have all of this vision of where I want to go, and I have almost like a craving or a strong desire to get there. Objectively, I have done a lot of stuff, but really, what does that stuff mean if it's not aligned with who I want to be and what I want to do? And that's what I felt in that moment, that really It's almost like he had the balls to just not do the stuff that he didn't want to do. And now that puts him in this position where he feels like he's a complete loser, where he feels like he hasn't achieved anything. But the reality is he had the balls to not get pushed into something that he didn't want. And most people don't even have the balls to leave something that they don't want, even when they have the financial means, even when they have the safety net. And the reality is that whatever the situation is, you might hate your job, right? I didn't even really hate it. I was just unfulfilled. But so many people work a job that they hate doing. They're in a relationship where they hate their partner, and still they cannot leave it because they're so scared that they will never find something as good. They will not find a job that's as good, that they will not find a partner that's as good, even if they hate it. But it comes from this scarcity mindset that, well, I hate it, but still it's better than not having anything. And so he had the balls to not do that. But really, because of how society works, rather than seeing it as him having the balls to never do it, he's seeing it as, oh my God, I'm such a loser. I haven't achieved anything. I haven't been able to live up to my own potential. Now, what I have done in the last few years is I created a vision for myself. And I am so certain of that vision that from this certainty comes the confidence that I have to make it happen, to just go do what's necessary, not give up when something doesn't work out, just keep going, because I know if I keep pushing it long enough, I will eventually succeed. And he doesn't have this vision yet. So what we're doing is we're working on his vision, and I know that he will eventually get to a point where he will have a vision, and from that vision will come the certainty that he can make it happen. And in a way, most of my adult life, I identified a lot more with younger people than with people in my age group, or at least since my late 20s, that was the case. And I believe that the reason for this is that young people, really young people after high school, when you first become an adult, you're in this situation where really the world feels like it's at your feet. Anything is possible. Now, back then, I was completely lost. I had no idea what I really wanted. I had the luck to stumble in law in a way which really saved me and gave me something to work towards and something that I was good at. But really, I didn't really know what life would have for me, right? When I stumbled into law, I started having a vision, and without really knowing what I was doing, I created this perspective of where I wanted to go, and that set everything in motion. But really anything was possible because I was still young and I saw all of the potential that I had, all of the potential that the world had. But when I came into my late 20s and 30s and I started realizing that the people around me all either had it completely figured out, they knew exactly what they wanted, they had their exact dream life, that's a very small portion, or they had just settled. They were just like, all of my dreams were kind of unrealistic, and now they live this life that they're not enjoying, but they also kind of stop questioning. And because they stop questioning, they oftentimes seemed relatively content. But I was not like that. I was different. I was always questioning. What do I really want? What can I do? And I knew I can feel it. I feel this potential that I have, this desire to do more. And whatever you desire, you can make it happen. That's the thing. If you desire it sufficiently and you take action, you can make it happen. And I knew I had the desire, but I didn't know how to make it happen. I didn't know the exact path, and I was always scared. I was literally terrified to take action, not knowing the path, like just walking blind. That was not for me, at least not for the past few years, until I realized that clarity comes from action. As long as you have a vision, as long as you have the end goal in mind, you might not see the exact path, but if you start walking, you will eventually hit a wall and you will be, okay, this is not the way. I walk back, and then you walk again, and then you hit an obstacle on the road and you're like, oh, okay, can I walk around the obstacle? And maybe you can walk around the first one, but then there's a bigger obstacle and you can walk around it, but there's someone you can ask for help. They help you move the obstacle out of the way. You keep walking and you hit a door, and you go in the door and you realize that's the wrong house. So you walk back and you take a different path. But as long as you know what the vision is, and you keep taking relentless action, you will eventually get to the destination. And as cheesy as that sounds, that's the realization that I had the last few years. It all comes down to having strong desire, creating a vision, and then having intentionality behind the actions that we take. Repeated intentional actions. Yeah, it's also this little book here that really changed my approach to it over the past years. I've read it multiple times, so I'm gonna link it down in the description as well for anyone that hasn't read it. And I would say that summarizes my thoughts on this topic. I just really wanted to share these concepts, this insight that I've gained this week from this talk with my friend, with my client, I have Senna, which is still strange because it's a little bit strange for me to work with someone who, in a way, I almost look up to for having such massive balls, but he doesn't see it himself. So a lot of the work is going to be me helping him see the potential that's actually lying within him that he's not even seeing himself. And this guy is going to become such a massive beast. He doesn't see it, but I see it. And by me helping him see it, he will be able to realize it. And that's what it comes down to. And I cannot wait for that. That said, thanks for watching so far. I love you guys for watching. And I actually fucking appreciate it. If you're still watching this, just know that for me, I've been creating content on this YouTube channel for, I think, 7 months now. I'm at 120 followers, subscribers, whatever you call it on YouTube. So in reality, that's less than a subscriber a day, which is very little. And so it feels like, man, the journey is so slow. But as long as I know that what I'm sharing here, which literally costs me 15 minutes to record and another maybe 45 minutes to an hour to edit and publish, if that changes one person, if that changes you, if that changes one of you guys, it's been worth it, right? Knowing that I can share something from my mind and just having the ability to share these insights. I find it so fascinating. Yeah, I had this insight and now it's time to take action on that insight, right? Whenever you have an insight and you don't take action on it, when you realize that you're doing something wrong and you're not changing something, that's where you're like a year later, like, man, I already realized this. Why didn't I change it? But whenever I have an insight and having the ability and making the decision to change something, that's what it comes down to. That said, I'll see you in the next video.